You know what hit me about 11 seconds ago? It's Friday. It'd be one of those good days to do songs that suck, just to kind of break up the monotony, just so your face doesn't start to hurt too much. Ever miss the days of songs that suck? I kind of do right now, because I'm terribly afraid that I'm going to fall into this vortex of nerdy football talk and I'm not going to be able to get out of it. You're going to have to bring me out of it somehow, because I'm about to fall into that trap. Guess whose handprints are all over the first round of the NFL draft? Huh? Aaron Rodgers. I know they're not so obvious, but his handprints are all over the first round of the NFL draft. Now, I'll spare you, because Garrett politely asked me. You know what he said? He said, do you have to do that Aaron Rodgers STD thing? So I said, you know what? You're not going to hear me say STD or chlamydia at all this week. So I'm backing off that. Now, the rest of you can do with it whatever you want. Because for some weird reason, some of you seem to like that I use an STD analogy when I talk about Aaron Rodgers. I think it works perfectly, but I was politely asked, could you move on to something else? So there it is. There's a promise up front. None of that stuff. He's still a factor. I feel like his handprints are all over this in the weirdest way, and his handprints are all over the NFL draft and the NFL still in a way that I don't think is going to work at all. Again, but it's still there. Like the shadow, the fingerprints. It's just, that's what I sense. A lot of you are going to react to what happens in the moment. I try not to be a prisoner of the moment. When you create content that needs to last a few days, you got to be careful about being a prisoner of the moment. So I'm going to try not to do that. So something's up. I feel like something is up with Aaron Rodgers. I feel like something is up with Kirk Cousins of the Falcons, or formerly of the Falcons. I feel like it's formerly of the Falcons. But the two most talked about players before the draft, I guess two of the three, talked about before the draft are still the most talked about players after the first round. That's Aaron Rodgers and Shedeur Sanders. They keep intersecting somehow, some way. And I think it kind of works here for obvious reasons. Let me say this up front. I need some help with drugs right now. I don't know what is the most powerful hallucinogenic you can think of. I'm not going to use crack today either, because I feel like I used a lot of crack yesterday, and I feel like the production of the NFL draft really was crack. It was worse than crack. It was like an EDM concert. So I'm now moving on to horrible hallucinogenics, and I don't know what to say. So I'm going to use, for the time being, until I'm corrected, I'm going to use angel dust, because I feel like that was something we used to talk about when I was a kid. It sounded horrible. So I'm just going to use that. Okay? Because I think you're on angel dust. I said it. If you think, or if they do it, somebody in the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is on angel dust, and any of you would agree with it are on angel dust. If you think the Pittsburgh Steelers, a legendary franchise, is going to go in the next season, 17-game regular season, with Mason Rudolph, you are on angel dust. That is football suicide. Okay? That just can't be. In other words, you don't go into a 17-game season in the AFC North. You don't play Lamar Jackson. You don't play Joe Burrow with Mason Rudolph. You just don't. No one is that stupid. No one's that high. No one can possibly be that high. So I'm going to assume that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin are not on angel dust, and they're not crazy. That can't happen. So the Steelers need a capable starter. I didn't say they need a great starter. They need a capable starter, and it seems obvious that that capable starter, for the time being, is most likely Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins. Surprisingly, it's not Shedeur Sanders, at least for now, although I don't think that story is over just yet. So if going into next year with Mason Rudolph is football suicide, can we agree on that? You don't even know who he is anymore, right? You don't even know who that guy is. That should tell you everything. So if we agree that if you thought that was a good idea, you're on angel dust and it is football suicide, can we assume that betting a 17-game season in the AFC North and a few playoff games, I would assume they hope they get, with 41-year-old egomaniac nutcase Aaron Rodgers, that's maybe not quite angel dust, but that's a pretty bad buzz of some kind. That's a dumb bet. I think it's a dumb bet. You know what I think of the guy, and I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming that it's not going to end well. So that, to me, is just shocking that that's the plan. That's a 17-game season. The next year, it's most likely going to be an 18-game season, by the way, not even counting playoff games. And it's not like you're playing Aikens High School every other week. You got some pretty great players. It's a pretty great competition in your league. So I just find that shockingly dumb and a crazy bet. And Pittsburgh is not a dumb franchise, and Mike Tomlin is not a dumb coach. But a year of Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph in the AFC North against Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson is insane to me, my opinion. But as of right now, I guess that's the plan. Good luck with that. So something's up. I just don't believe they're dumb teams. Dumb teams do stupid things. In Dallas, their owner is old and he's kind of Joe Biden-like. And so they do weird, goofy things. Stupid teams do stupid stuff. But the Pittsburgh Steelers and the AFC North don't qualify as crazy and stupid to me. They really don't. So I'm either right that there's a Kirk Cousins move in the works somewhere. Might be them. Or the baggage of Deion Sanders is weighing too much on some teams and possibly the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did I not say that a couple of days ago? I just don't. Can I do a Venn diagram? I'm going to. Imagine this in your mind. Okay, I told you the other day that the Deion Sanders is becoming the over-the-top, angry Little League dad, but he carries extra influence, right? He's not just some guy you can blow off. He's a guy that people listen to. One, he's one of the most famous players of all time. And two, he's an incredibly successful coach who has already told the world, there's only one person who can coach my kid, and that's me. So him yapping at every franchise how they use or don't use Shedeur Sanders, I think carries a lot of weight. And I'm wondering, as we sit here today, the fact that Shedeur Sanders did not get drafted by the Steelers at 21, when it was all set up for the Steelers to pick him at 21, when every indicator was it made perfect sense. I'm not saying it makes you great, but it made sense. Because you have Mason Rudolph, that's why. And there's no way you're playing next year with somebody named Mason Rudolph. So I wonder, and you can take it and run with it all you want, because I do think it's on the table. I think it's very much on the table. I wonder how much that's weighed on people. I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders, I don't believe this, that he has baggage. I don't find every college star is cocky. Quarterbacks are extra cocky, and that's not a bad thing. And I'm telling you, NFL teams don't care about that stuff. So I don't think there's baggage with him. I do think there's two things that worked against him. One, I think his dad. Not because he's famous, not because he's black, but because he matters a lot. What he says carries a ton of weight because he's great and he's a successful coach. There's that. And I do think teams, to get nerdy for a second in the football style department, because I've been bragging about this guy as a pure NFL player, a surgical player, not a great athlete by any stretch. But I've told you many times, my preference is I don't look for an athlete, I want a surgeon. I need Tom Brady, who can't run at all, before I need some dude that goes Robert Griffin III on people. But I do think teams, some more than others, fans and media are enamored with athletic quarterbacks. We are now fixated on, look what he can do. And there's a lot of guys that can, right? We've watched Josh Allen be a miracle worker so many times. We kind of think that's the way it's supposed to be. We've watched Patrick Mahomes spin out of plays and chunk it over his head and behind his back and every which way, and we kind of fallen in love with that's the way it has to be. Or we've watched Lamar Jackson, who's learned to be a surgeon, run off and leave a bunch of guys, and we think that's the way it's supposed to be. And Shedeur Sanders is not that at all. At all. He doesn't run much. He's tall and skinny. He looks and plays like Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. I used that comp before. I don't think some teams like that. I disagree. I agree with Mel Kiper. But I think that part works against him too, and I think it's partly in play. How much, I don't know. How much of the weight is his dad? That I don't know either, but I think it does matter. It's an interesting mix. So I think something's going on because there's no way the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's no way the New Orleans Saints, okay? There's no way these teams can enter a 17-game season with the players they have. It just doesn't make any sense. Something's up. I don't know how. I don't know which one, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, blah, 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 but there's just nobody wakes up today and says, man, I cannot wait the first time Mason Rudolph squares up against Joe Burrow. We're going to kick their ass. Can't wait till Derek Carr plays the Buccaneers. Man, we're going to light them up again. No. Nobody with any sense at all enters the season with those guys. No way. There's just no way. But weirdly enough, it may work out for Cleveland. It may have worked perfect. Nothing ever works for Cleveland, right? It never works out. Everything goes wrong. But a quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, may just fall in their lap. It may have worked out perfectly for them, not so great for him, because Shedeur Sanders, by losing one full day, the estimate is that would be $37 million. He's going to be rich. He already is pretty wealthy. It's not like his dad doesn't have any money. I get it. But 37 is still 37. So I think in a weird way, I don't know that a second round of an NFL draft has ever had as much intrigue or drama or importance than what we're about to have this evening. Because Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans cannot play next season with the quarterbacks they have. They cannot. No way. So something has to give this evening. And I suspect if I had to guess right now, I'm going to guess that Cleveland gets their guy after all. And that's Shedeur Sanders. It sucks for him because that's where players go to die. And he also lost $37 million. And I suspect something else is up with Pittsburgh. And I'm going to guess here, this is just a guess, that Pittsburgh, as I said earlier, may be one of those teams that's enamored with a better athlete at quarterback than Shedeur Sanders. For right or wrong, better or worse, some teams think that. So they go ahead and enter next season. I'm not going to use chlamydia as an example. Here goes. Watch. They're going to enter next season with a terrible athlete and a washed-up Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Milroe. That will have fallen in their lap too. That's how I'm guessing. Or some comp to Jalen Milroe, which I don't know what it'd be. I think that's it. Something like that happens. All right, so everybody's flipping out about why these terrible things happen to Shedeur Sanders. It's all conspiracy, blah, 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 blah. Tinfoil hat. They hate him. They hate his dad. His dad's going to go on and on and on. Everyone hates me. It's because of his last name, blah, 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 blah. I don't agree with any of that, by the way. But some of you do, and some of you like the reactions. Whew. Here comes, first up, as usual, in all black, with the camera about 1.5 inches away from his face. He now looks just like Megamind doing a podcast. That's Skip Bayless.
I've never, ever seen anything like what is happening to Shedeur Sanders right here, right now. I predicted there would be some hate, some resentment, some nitpicking because of his father, but I did not see this coming. This is insane. This is laughably, pathetically, preposterously wrong. I'm here to tell you one last time, it's just flat wrong. Allow me, as a lifelong diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, I am telling you right here, right now, the Giants should throw a ticker tape parade through the concrete canyons of Manhattan. If Shedeur Sanders falls to them at 3, happy days would be here again in New York for the Giants. If Shedeur Sanders falls to 3, this is what I've learned in all my years. The most crucial attribute for an NFL quarterback is accuracy. And Shedeur is as deadly accurate a pocket passer as you'll ever see. All I know for sure is if Shedeur Sanders impossibly, wrongly, insanely falls out of the top 3, somebody is going to get an all-time steal. I have never, ever...
Okay. I wonder, would my show be better if I had that porn music as a music bed underneath? Huh? Or maybe if I did Megamind and I put the camera right into my forehead. That was stupid. That was really silly. I think he's a really good player, but I just think it's a matter of taste. Two things kind of work, I think, which I don't think this one is all bad. And I think Shedeur Sanders is a really good player. Give him enough good players around him, and it's going to work because the NFL is about throwing the ball downfield, not running the ball downfield. But I think teams have, there's not that many teams need quarterbacks, right? You've had this run of a few years where you've had a bunch of guys, but you've also had a run of 2 years where teams have been burned horribly by overreaching for quarterbacks. And I do think there is a level of caution with some of them. Okay, I think they are, particularly the organizations that are in the market for a quarterback, I just think they look up and see what happened with the Jets. I think they've looked up and see what has happened with a few teams and say, man, I can't get burned like that. We'll figure it out after a while. Nobody's that good. So I think that plays into it as well. I think it's probably more science and taste than it is hatred. But I don't think you can completely dismiss my argument that Deion Sanders, the voice screaming at your entire ownership group about Shedeur Sanders, I don't think you can write that off as nothing. I think it matters. I just don't know how much. But the belief is it cost this kid $37 million. This is a report from Yahoo. The irony of Shedeur Sanders missing out on $37 million plus from potentially going number 1 to slipping out of the first round is his entire brand is based on money. Well, that's true. The dollar sign, did you see this? I can't wait to talk about how bad the production was of the NFL draft. I couldn't even hear people analyze because of the EDM concert going on in the background. But it's a $37 million fall from the top of the draft to the second round. You know, I mean, you make that back in your second contract. If I'm making a prediction, I think Cleveland gets what they want this evening. I think Pittsburgh, probably in their mind, they get what they want this evening. Aaron Rodgers is waiting. I suspect that Aaron Rodgers is still hoping somehow, some way the Minnesota Vikings want him because that's the best job of all. And so he's put off anything else waiting on that phone call because he knows if he goes to Pittsburgh, he has to carry him for a while. He knows it. It's a rough division, rough place to play. It's going to be a rough look. And I think even he knows his staying power is not that great. So he's going to go and get high wherever he is and talk about Fauci. So I don't think it's all that shocking what has happened in the first part of the draft. In fact, I think it's kind of cool and probably pretty prudent and at some level pretty smart. And I think it's going to end up where everybody gets what they want.